Welcome to the question and responses. Question 1 from Sadi Khalid. Can you please talk about gallbladder stones? My son is having frequent attacks and can't eat any grains, fats, dairy, or legumes. Even when he eats only vegetables, his stomach gets pains. Does he have to remove his gallbladder? He's 22 years old. More than likely, he does not have to remove the gallbladder. So let's look into this. When you look at gallstones are formed under stress. Now, what does the gallbladder do? Well, when you look at this, the stress hormones, and this is going to be cortisol, epinephrine, norepinephrine, or the adrenals, and they go through the entire body, and they're filtered through the spleen, and the spleen sends all the blood over to the liver to be broken down into bile, because all the red blood cells only last 120 days. So you're constantly making new red blood cells. And the liver, the way the efficiency of the body is, the liver is going to take these blood constituents, break it down into bile. And then the gallbladder stores and concentrates this bile. So when fats hit the duodenum, which is the part of the intestinal tract, just a little bit lower than the stomach, as soon as fat hits that area, then the gallbladder contracts to excrete the bile in the duodenum to emulsify fats. This way you get the fatty acids from the fats, so you can build hormones, you could build everything out of. So know that your son has been under significant physical, chemical, or emotional stressors in order to form gallstones. Now, when I was doing human dissection, teaching at a college, I had a whole jar full of these gallstones, and they're very, very light. And when you slice them open, the crystalline formation indicates that they are formed from chronic states of stress, because those hormones get released and they're stored and concentrated there too. And even under significant stress, we see a gallbladder sludge where the bile is not beautiful, clear, and flowing good. And we can literally start to work that gallbladder, or the common bile duct, where the bile is excreted, into that duodenum. And we have to excrete that gallbladder duct in order to have the healthy bile flow. And also, the gallbladder drains the same opening as the pancreas. It's called the ampulla levator. And so any gallbladder sludge can decrease the pancreas, and the pancreas secrete this bicarb to raise that pH of the chyme, or the stuff coming out of the stomach, because it's at a very, very low pH. So the body can start to alkalinize that chyme so that certain nutrients can be absorbed. It's a brilliant system. But that gallbladder sludge can cause damage. Now, we've got to address the underlying stressors, and there's only 3. There's physical, chemical, and emotional stressors. So some of the stressors we can't even talk about on this platform. Okay, but know that there are certain chemical stressors in the food and certain medical interventions that could be giving him this fight or flight system, because every human being has 2 switches. You can be in a stress state or regenerative state. When you're in a stress state, that's also called sympathetic dominant. That means the adrenals are active, thyroid's low, blood supply to the gut is decreased. So you're literally trying to run away from a tiger. The other mode is regeneration, or parasympathetic. Now, the parasympathetic is located in the neck and the pelvis. So this kid is under significant stress. Now, so that means there's chronic decreased nerve supply to his intestinal tract. And the intestinal tract is not just digestion. This is called the gut brain. This is where neurotransmitters are produced. This is where your body literally gets the amino acids from the proteins, fatty acids from the fats, and usable sugars from the carbohydrates, so you can regenerate the body. So we have to look at the physical stressors, absolutely. And that's going to be a full set of x-rays of the pelvis, lumbar, thoracic, and cervical spine. Chemical stressors is poor sleep, toxic food, and certain medical interventions can lead to a toxic stress. Then, once you've identified those stressors, then let's clean up the gallbladder. And so when you're looking at what can dissolve gallstones, now there's good studies out there that talk about how apple juice can also, the malic acid in there can help decrease the stones, can start to help dissolve them. Apple cider vinegar is also very good. There's also gallbladder flushes that are extremely effective. But I wouldn't recommend a gallbladder flush, because when these people are under a chronic state of stress, they're lucky to have one bowel movement a day. And so we need to get them up to 2 to 3 healthy bowel movements a day. Then you can do a liver flush. And the liver flush is a cup of olive oil, organic olive oil, and a cup of lemon juice or grapefruit juice, some type of citrus juice, and also lemon juice. Any kind of citrus juice has also been shown to decrease gallbladder stones and to help dissolve them to get that thinner. But, you got to figure if you're not addressing those underlying stressors, then he's going to continually form this gallbladder sludge, which can eventually form into gallstones. When the gallbladder has been removed, you're looking at a significant decrease ability of the body to emulsify those fats. So anyone that's had the gallbladder removed, the gallbladder the liver is still excreting this bile into the duodenum, and it can literally start to bore a hole and cause duodenal ulcers. So you have to increase your fats, but I mean healthy fats. None of the toxic seed oils. We're talking healthy animal fats. We're looking at healthy coconut oil, avocados. So those kind of things you have to increase if the gallbladder's been removed. But you can decrease those gallstones and you can eliminate them by addressing the underlying stressors first. And then you can use apple cider vinegar, apple juice, citric juice. Okay, but you've got to change the sleep patterns. You've got to change the emotional component and the physical component. And you're looking at 99% of the time, you do not need to remove the gallbladder. But he has to get to a real doctor to identify the physical, chemical, and emotional stressors, and then his body can get healthy. Now, please, like this video, subscribe to my channel, and share this vital, life-saving information. We can literally change the world. Now, question 2 from Natian Dexta. What about bovine colostrum, especially for someone with no gallbladder with lactose intolerance? Well, when you're looking at this, bovine colostrum is amazing, amazing. You're talking it helps the immune system, it helps with intestinal permeability. Great studies have shown it helps with respiratory function. It is fantastic. Now, no gallbladder means that you have to increase your fats because that liver is still producing the bile and it's still excreting into that duodenum, and you need that bile in order to emulsify the fat so you can get the fatty acids so you can build your hormone production. Lactose intolerance, you can take digestive enzymes with lactase that will help with that. But you have to understand that if the gallbladder's been removed, that's because gallstones formed, and the gallstones form under a chronic state of stress. So we have to address the physical stress, chemical stress, and emotional stress, the underlying cause of why that gallbladder was removed in the first place. But bovine colostrum is going to be amazing at helping the immune system and helping get healthy fats in that system. But you have to increase your fat intake, the healthy fat intake, not the seed oils, and to help with the lactose intolerant, start taking a digestive enzyme when you're taking your food. Now, ideally, because you're in a chronic state of stress, look at a complete digestive enzymes. One with protease that will help with the protein digestion, amylase, which will help with the carbohydrate digestion, and a lipase, which will help with the fat digestion. And then this is a great supplement to help with an increased intestinal permeability, which more than likely, and that's also called a leaky gut, which bovine colostrum has been shown very, very effective in healing that. And also, it's going to help with respiratory infections. There's great studies on it. Now, question 3 from Vicky Chiarellis. Has anyone experienced intense anxiety or night sweats after COVID? I've never had the jab, but just got over a 2-week illness with COVID. But the night sweats since and long fever has never stopped, nor these bouts of jitteriness, anxiety, or feeling clammy. Is this a usual feeling after a viral infection? I've never experienced anything like it. There's a lot of things that we can't go into in this format, but when you're looking at this, anxiety has to do with the gut because it's called the gut-brain and the frontal lobe. Okay. And that's where anxiety, stress, depression, impulse control are. The frontal lobe is programmed by the cerebellum, and the cerebellum gets its input from the position and motion of the vertebrae. So there may be some type of physical stressor causing abhorrent signals up to that cerebellum, also putting the brain, that frontal lobe, to respond correctly to stress. Now, the brilliance is, look at how your body is. We've got this automatic nervous system and two switches. One switch is the sympathetic, or that's the fight or flight. The other part is regeneration, and that's the parasympathetic. So when you're in a chronic state of fight or flight, your immune system is stressed, you're just running away from the tiger. What happens at night? At nighttime, that's when the parasympathetic, even in a chronic state of stress, that parasympathetic starts to get activated. Now, what happens? Which one of your detox pathways? Well, sweating. What are the 4 detox pathways? Respiration, perspiration, bowel movements, and urination. So at nighttime, when you're sleeping, you're looking at the possible an increasing temperature, which is fantastic, because for every 1 degree increase in temperature, the speed of the immune system doubles. And viruses, funguses, and bacteria die at a higher temperature. Now, viruses are not predators. They're not going after healthy cells. Viruses, funguses, bacteria, molds, all of those things are scavengers. They only go after unhealthy cells. Now, when you look at your body, you have around 70 trillion cells. You have 10 times that amount of bacteria. You have 10 times the bacteria of viruses. And you have countless molds, funguses, and yeast. Okay? So one of my instructors would say that you are 2/3 bug. So you are a symbiotic relationship designed to live on this planet. Also, 45% of your DNA is viral. So they're not predators attacking you. So in order to develop a viral infection, it means you had to have some type of damaged tissue, because viruses cannot replicate on their own. They have to utilize your RNA or DNA to replicate. So there has to be damaged tissue in order to develop a growth of a viral or any other type of pathogen. So now your body is responding correctly based on the stress level you're under. And there's only 3 stressors: physical stress, chemical stress, and emotional stress. So look at these symptoms after a viral infection, which means you had to have unhealthy tissue in order to absorb it. So we have to look at physical stress by looking at digital x-rays and static and stress x-rays of the entire structure, focusing in on the pelvis, lumbar, and cervical spine, because those are the 2 areas, the pelvis and the cervical spine, where that rest, digest, and repair nervous system is. And if there's an alteration in structure, you're going to have an alteration in function. Then you look at the chemical stressors, and that's going to be poor sleep patterns. So look at our sleep restriction videos so you can reset your circadian rhythms. Then look at toxic diet. Make sure your diet is just like your great-great-grandparents, organic, healthy, seasonal, fermented foods to build up the gut bacteria. And then look at the emotional stressors on how to reprogram the brain. So don't be afraid of a COVID infection. It's no different than any other virus, even though, its origin is something that we can't talk about in this media. Okay, and we can't talk about like details of the COVID, but we'll talk about that on the Dr. BVIP, where I can speak without self-censorship. And the jitteriness and anxiety, the clammy, all of that stuff is your body trying to mount an immune system response. So by addressing the underlying physical, chemical, and emotional stressors, and then building up that gut flora and healing that gut, that is going to be fantastic. So your body can build healthy cells so that the viruses have no place to grow. And this is why when you look at, according to the gods at CDC, they said for any human being to have a problem with COVID, you had to have 3.8 comorbid conditions. So these were not healthy people that developed that infection in the first place. And you will get better, absolutely, but not by fighting the body's response to physical, chemical, and emotional stress. We've got to build that system so that you can mount a healthy response to the environment. You don't need to be afraid of viruses. You don't need to be afraid of bacteria, because this is part of your ecosystem. You have an ecosystem based on how your body is going to respond to the environment. You were designed to live on this planet, and the planet was designed for you. So you can't be afraid of anything on this planet. But you have to look at the underlying, how are you building healthy cells? Because you break down and build 1 billion cells every day. And if you're building healthy cells, beautiful. You got a good immune system response, because the way a person is supposed to respond correctly to any type of pathogenic response is you're supposed to develop a fever. Why? What happens with a fever? Well, for any 1 degree increase in temperature, your immune system doubles. Then you're going to be developing diarrhea. Why? Because that alkalinizes it. You may develop increased mucus production, because that's histamine response that literally walls off the mucus increased production, walls off any pathogens, so that your body can mount this beautiful cascade of immune system responses. So any infection that you've experienced, your body can build antibodies. So any similar virus, fungus, bacteria, anything, that your body is going to be stronger so you can respond to it in the future. So we are designed to be exposed to these so-called pathogens so our immune system can get educated. So address the underlying stressors and your body will be able to regenerate. Absolutely. Question 4 from Grandall 4. Recently, I've been diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. I need to lose weight, but I have to get gel injections in my knee. Bone-on-bone pain. I just had a heart cath, 1 stent. I feel like a medical nightmare. I'm 66. The Watchman was suggested because I'm on Xarelto and Plavix. Help. We're going to be able to go into this in greater detail in the answered, because I have to self on this format in the Dr. B VIP. Now, type 2 diabetes is a stress response. Now, when you look at 95% of all diabetics, it's also called insulin resistant, which is crazy, because insulin's job is to take the energy or the glucose out of the blood. It knocks on the cells open up, and then the glucose rushes in. And they call it insulin resistant. And that's not true. It's a blood poisoning. And it has to do with literally a toxic environmental diet or chronic states of stress. And this makes the blood thick and toxic. And so by treating type 2 diabetes with metformin or glucophage, that does lower blood glucose. However, the insulin levels remain high. There's not a problem with insulin in type 2 diabetes, but it is a blood poisoning. And this is from a chronic state of stress. And there's only 3 stressors: physical, chemical, emotional. Knowing that your knee is having an issue, that means your gait is off. And that means the pelvis is off as well. The pelvis houses half of that automatic nervous system, the resting, digesting, and repair. So when we're looking at this, you are in a chronic state of stress. And this is physical, chemical, emotional stress. Injections in the knee are not addressing the underlying cause. When you look at your knees, all the joints in the body are hydraulic, and that means they need fluid. So why do diabetics have joint pain? Well, because the blood is thick. And since every joint has this beautiful, beautiful capsule, and inside of every joint is synovial fluid, and that fluid is a superfiltrated blood. But if the blood is thick, it can't get in there, and then the joints desiccate or dry up. And then crazy doctors will say it bone on bone. And I'm telling you, I've looked at tens of thousands of knees and have never seen bone on bone. You'll see compression of that joint. But if that joint can bend to 90 degrees, that means you're sitting. And if it can straighten up to nearly straight, so where you can walk, then we know there's movement at the joint. So if there's movement, you can distract that joint. So look at our knee health video, which involves distraction. Look at our pelvic health video, which will stabilize the pelvis. That's going to be huge. And knowing that you had a stent in there, it means that you're going to have atherosclerotic plaquing. And this is going to be huge because the arteries, that plaquing only comes from damage to the arteries, not from increased cholesterol. Okay, that's crazy. The body uses cholesterol for tissue repair and hormone production. But the seed oils that you're being exposed to from fast foods, and we're talking cottonseed oil, canola oil, corn oil, all of those things can actually damage the microvasculature of the arteries. This is why arteries get damaged, but veins don't. And anything that damages that artery, the body is going to protect that arterial wall with calcium, fibrin, and cholesterol. And so that plaquing, the reason they put the stent in there is from arterial damage. Now, I encourage you to look at Linus Pauling. You're talking 2 Nobel Prize winners, big advocate of vitamin C, developed a couple of ways to clean the arteries utilizing vitamin C and L-lysine. Look him up. It's fantastic. That's why we recommend juicing and blending. Juicing, apple, carrot, beet, and celery juice. And you really need to address the underlying physical, chemical, and emotional stressors, because your doctors are going to say, stay away from juice because you have diabetes. Okay, there's a different way that the body metabolizes the fructose as opposed to the refined sugars. So you really need to get a good doctor that's going to address the physical stress by addressing the unstable pelvis that I know you got because of the altered gait. There's also going to be a cervical component, and that's the 2 areas, the pelvis and the cervical spine, that house that parasympathetic nervous system. And by addressing the physical stressors, then you've got to heal the gut, because more than likely there's going to be a leaky gut. Stabilizing the pelvis is going to be the key, and then distracting the knees so you can regenerate that cartilage naturally. Just injecting the gel will not help that tissue regenerate. You've got to address the underlying causes. And I'm going to answer this in greater detail on the Dr. B VIP site. But Grandal, you will get better, my friend. And if your question wasn't answered here, please go to the Dr. B VIP site where I can speak more freely. God bless you and stay healthy, my friends.